Though the Mensa mansion boasted servants, polished marble floors, and imported art, it was also a house of rules and silence. Efua remembered once scraping her knee on the garden tiles and running to her mother for comfort, only to be told sharply not to bleed on the carpet. Her father was often away, traveling between gold mines and business meetings. When home, he remained unreachable, reading stock reports, answering phone calls, sipping dark wine in his leather armchair. Efua often escaped to the company of the gardener, an old man named Kwame, who would sing Akan proverbs as he trimmed the hedges. Kwame was the first to ever tell her that the earth listens, and the sky speaks, but only to those who care to hear. She cared. Even then, God was sowing seeds in the cracks of her loneliness. There was a school crusade in Efua's school. The school crusade was not just a moment, it was a breaking for her. The preacher had spoken of a shepherd who left 99 sheep to find the one who was lost. Efua felt like that one sheep. She clutched her chest as the words poured out of the speakers. "You are not forgotten," he said, voice trembling. "Even if your father forgets you, even if your mother turns away, God sees you." Her eyes filled with tears. She remembered praying, not in perfect words, but in longing, "Jesus, if you're real, come for me. Come find me." The sky was streaked with violet and gold as she walked home. Her heart felt light, her steps unsure, but within her was a certainty that she had been found. Efua's faith began with simple acts, blessing her meals, whispering scriptures under her breath, choosing kindness even when mocked. But her family's rejection grew more intense. Her sisters would pour water on her while she prayed. Her mother forbade her from attending church. Her father once dragged her by the arm and locked her in a storehouse overnight after finding a devotional under her pillow. Yet she prayed softly into her pillow. She fasted every Friday without telling anyone. She started a secret Bible study at school under the neem tree with 2 classmates. And as her grades began to go high, so did her spirit soared. Mr. Mensah was introduced to a spiritualist through a friend in Accra. His friend was an old mining champion who had unlocked supernatural prosperity. The ritualist, known only as Okomfo Boko, lived in the depths of the forest near Isioma. His shrine was dark and fragrant with herbs and incense. Skulls adorned the walls, and strange symbols lined the ground in ash and chalk. When they visited the ritualist camp, Okomfo Boko told him that he knows he seeks more than gold. Okomfo Boko said, "You want what no man can take from you, legacy. But legacy must be bought in blood." Efua's name was spoken. Her picture, which was taken from her passport, was folded into black cloth and tossed into fire. But the fire hissed and spit. Okomfo Boko frowned. "She is not yours to offer," he said. Still, Mr. Mensah persisted, again and again. Until the night Oreba, his first daughter, fell ill. That night, rain fell hard on the rooftop. The servants whispered of demons. Efua wept in her room, not knowing what had happened, but knowing in her spirit, something unseen had shifted. Soon her sister died a mysterious death that no one spoke of in their house. Her father didn't cry at the funeral even whilst other family members were wailing. Some thought he was overwhelmed with anguish, therefore tears refused to come, but unbeknownst to them, if he had dared cry, the calamity that would befall him would be beyond what he was even seeing. At university in Cape Coast, Efua finally found space to breathe. She joined a campus fellowship, where she led early morning prayers and mentored younger girls. She studied psychology and hoped to counsel children from broken homes. But the threat remained even when she thought she had found peace away from home. Strange phone calls. A man lurking outside her lecture hall. Once, a motorbike followed her at dusk until she docked into a shop. She knew danger had not passed. But, she also knew her covering had not lifted. Her father hired thugs to ambush and capture her. They were to send her to the camp of the ritualist. On the day of the ambush, she felt a weight in her chest whilst preparing to go home. Something whispered to her spirit not to go home. She turned toward the chapel instead. At the church, the prayers rose like incense into the sky. She wept for her father's soul. She cried out to the Lord to save her family, especially her father. The thugs waited for several hours without her showing up and left. Her father was also anxious in the house. The phone network was bad, no calls were going through. Her only remaining sister, Abina, was always the obedient daughter. Brilliant, poised, and bound by duty. When her father asked her to go to the thugs' abode to check on business arrangements for him, she didn't question him. She didn't know what business her father was talking about. She wore her sister's old blouse and left for the errand. Upon reaching there, the thugs grabbed her quickly. She struggled, but they were stronger. Her last words were screams muffled by cloth. They sent her to the ritualist who killed her immediately for the rituals. Later, her father, who waited for his daughter for so long and not knowing what had happened, decided to go to the ritualist camp. When Mr. Mensah reached there, he saw her lifeless body on the altar. Something inside him shattered. The weight of years of sin, bribes, thefts, betrayals crashed down like a wave. He vomited. He wept. And then he fled. The house was silent when Efua arrived. She felt the heaviness before the front door even opened. Mr. Mensah was on the floor, talking incoherently. Nonna, his wife, clung to the altar in the living room, her wrapper torn, her hair undone. They started wailing upon seeing her. Efua knelt beside them both, not knowing what had happened but trying to console them. Then her father began to confess to her. She began to weep. She told them there was still hope. Even now, there is grace. She led them through the sinner's prayer. Her voice did not shake. Later that night, she dreamt of a great fire consuming their house, but from the ashes, a garden bloomed. The next morning, she awoke with peace. The mansion transformed into a place of praise. Walls once covered in expensive art now held verses from the Bible and family portraits framed with humility. Mr. Mensah sold his stake in several illicit ventures and began a foundation to support abandoned children. He publicly testified at his local church. He said, "The God my daughter worships saved me, not by destroying me, but by breaking me." Efua graduated with honors. She traveled to churches across West Africa, sharing her testimony, not to showcase trauma, but to highlight redemption. Her story reached radio stations, podcasts, and even national television. One day, years later, as she stood before a crowd of thousands at a crusade in Kumasi, a little girl approached her with wide eyes and whispered, "I want to know the Jesus you know." Efua knelt, tears in her eyes. She told her, "He's already calling your name." There are fires that consume. And there are fires that refine. Efua's life was forged in the heat of rejection, persecution, and attempted destruction, but what emerged was not ash, but an altar. The fire her family kindled could not consume her, because it was met with a greater flame, a fire from heaven. The fire of grace. Years passed, as years do, quietly, steadily. Time aged Efua, but it could not dim her fire. She remained in ministry well into her 30s, traveling not just within Ghana, but across Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa. Wherever she went, she carried the same message: grace can reach the darkest places. Her testimony was now a wellspring, not of sorrow, but of strength. Young girls saw in her what many had never seen in their own mothers, a woman unafraid to believe, to forgive, to rise. It was at a small conference in Kumasi that she met Kwame Owusu, a widowed pastor with 2 children and a soft voice. He had heard of her story, but when they met, he didn't speak of her past. Instead, he asked, "And what has God promised you next?" Efua smiled and said, "To rebuild the ruins. And to be loved in the light." They married quietly in the church where she had first preached a decade earlier. Her father walked her down the aisle. No longer the man of gold and schemes, but a man of tears and prayer. As he gave her away, he whispered, "The daughter I tried to kill is the one who saved my soul." Efua and Kwame built a home, not one immersed in riches, but filled with joy. Their walls were lined with books and prayer requests from people across the continent. They adopted children, first 2, then 4, then 6. Children abandoned by families, children like she once was in her own house. Their home became known locally as the House of Second Chances. Nonna, Efua's mother, moved in with them in her later years. Age softened her once sharp eyes. She often sat with the children, humming hymns, telling them stories of the days she almost lost everything. She told them about the girl who lit a fire with her prayers. Oreba and Abina, her dead sister's rooms, were never forgotten. Efua kept their photos on the shelf, not as a shrine to pain, but as a reminder of redemption's cost. Years later, with the help of her husband and father, Efua founded a boarding school in Cape Coast, the Refiner School. It was not like others. Every child who entered came from hardship. Many were abandoned, abused, or written off as hopeless. But Efua walked among them like a mother with a touch. She taught the Bible and led devotions. She made each child memorize a Bible verse before graduation. The school became a sanctuary. Revival broke out more than once. The children, some teenagers, were baptized in the same stream where Efua once sat to pray during university. Miracles were common. Not of thunder and lightning, but of healing, forgiveness, and vision. When Efua turned 50, a massive celebration was held in Tokoradi. The once silent home of her childhood now echoed with gospel choirs, prayer meetings, and joyous reunions. Mr. Mensah, now grey and slow, stood beside her, weeping freely as a crowd of thousands gave thanks for the life of the girl he once betrayed. "I tried to quench a fire I did not start," he confessed. "And now, I thank God it burned through me too." That night, Efua's eldest adopted daughter, Ajoa, a once rebellious teen turned great preacher, took the microphone and said, "If Mama Efua taught me anything, it's that the light in you isn't just for you. It's to set others ablaze." And in that moment, as hundreds of children raised candles to the sky in honor of Efua's faith, a wave of firelight danced across the city. A flame passed on. Efua never chased titles. She never built cathedrals. But she lit lamps, one soul at a time. The girl who once whispered prayers under a mango tree ended up setting a continent on fire with grace. She wrote no biography. She left behind no riches. But in the hands of those she taught, discipled, adopted and loved, she left something more eternal, a fire that could not, and would not, be quenched.